Thank you for your time today. I just want to take a few minutes and talk about how CHeKT, a visual verification solution, will benefit an alarm monitoring center, an alarm integrator, and ultimately your clients in the security industry. My name is David Erickson, and with me today is John Milliron, our Vice President of the company.
The first thing I always want to present is why is video verification important? Video verification is important and critical because it's simply the best way to provide a video and security service to the client. We know traditionally a traditional alarm panel, due to limitations in the past, was a sensor, whether that was a reed switch on a door contact or a motion detector. It was a sensor that would allow a monitoring center to know if there was movement or activity on a property, but it was no more than that. And due to the limitations of technology, that was really the best available at the time. And so monitoring centers, of course, would receive those alarm signals and had a requirement to call a couple of key holders or contacts for that site. Before at some point they would have to, during that process, of course, the liability has to be passed, and the monitoring center does not want to hold on to that liability, and the security company or the integrator certainly doesn't want to be liable. And so the police are dispatched if no one can be reached because an operator is blind and has no idea what's going on site. And so with the advent of IP cameras and high definition video, of course, and networks that have become very reliable, video verification has been a conversation and a topic in the industry and in technology, and has become certainly a service that integrators and dealers would like to provide. And over the last, I would say, 5 years, it's been a challenge for them to figure out how to provide that. But we know that it's important because giving an operator eyes during an alarm is key information. We ask customers, do you want the operators at the monitoring center to see what's going on during an alarm, or would you prefer them to be blind? And that's a rhetorical question because we know that every client would prefer the operators to be able to see. But video verification is key for three main reasons, we say. Is number one, the city ordinances are changing. Consumer expectations are changing, and there's an increased RMR available to dealers who provide video verification services. As it relates to the city ordinances, our industry has somewhat pushed back and been offended a little bit by the cities who have required video verification or audio verification. But frankly, I think we should be a little bit more understanding. And I think a lot of us are in the security industry. We understand why these cities are pushing for it. Number one, officer safety. We want those officers to be able to go home and be safe and see their families at night or in the morning as much as anybody. And those officers, when they're responding to 99% false alarms, it's really challenging for them to go to every alarm that they've been dispatched on and not feel like it's another false alarm. Well, that puts officers at risk every day. And then the other reason is we know it's budgetary. I mean, these cities have responded to alarms for decades. The alarm industry has frankly used the police departments as their own personal guard service for decades and never had to pay for it. And so we understand why cities are pushing back a little bit. If we properly install video with an alarm system, we also know that officers want to respond. When officers get an alarm and we've told them that there's someone on site, when a monitoring center can say we see a crime in progress, the officers are there. They're not taking an hour and 45 minutes to get to a crime. Those officers want to apprehend criminals more than anyone else. And so video verification is key in preventing crime and keeping officers safe and getting the bad guys off the street, frankly. The second primary reason is that the consumer expectations are changing. We know customers are looking at Ring, they're looking at Nest, they're looking at all of the DIY products on the market. The founder of Ring said that the alarm industry is ripe for disruption. We've experienced that in this industry. We've seen the loss of revenue. We've seen the loss of our customer base. And so we have to provide a service that the millennials would really be willing to pay for. If you go and you're selling an alarm system to a client and you ask them when an alarm occurs on this site, do you want our operators to be able to see what caused the alarm to occur or not? And when that question is posed, every client is going to say, of course, I want your operators to see the alarm. It's an intuitive response to the question. Every customer wants that because we know that that is what's going to allow the operator to respond accordingly. And the customers of today really don't understand why video verification is so challenging. If you've been in the industry for long enough, we know why it's so challenging, whether that's the age of certain systems on sites, whether that's the infrastructure that's available, internet service that's available. We know that there's a number of reasons that make that difficult for an installer to accomplish video verification services, but the end user doesn't care, nor do they understand. And so they're expecting that. Many customers are expecting that level of service today. And then lastly, video verification increases the RMR opportunity for your integrators. It provides an improved level of monitoring service. It gives the operators confidence when they're responding to an alarm. You know, we know how many times an operator has called a client at 2 in the morning to say, you know, Mr. Smith, I'm calling because we have a motion detector going into alarm in your warehouse. Is everything okay? And of course, Mr. Smith is getting woken up at 2 in the morning and has no idea of what's going on in his warehouse. So he's concerned, he's now frustrated. And so his response to the operator is, well, I don't know, is everything okay? And the operator, of course, is blind and has no idea. And so immediately there's tension between an operator and a client who thought his site was secure. And so then the next day, the client is calling his security company and he's frustrated. And after a month of that, after 12 months of that, it's likely that the customer will cancel if that situation isn't resolved. With video, the operator can speak with confidence of what caused an alarm to occur. With video, there's an expedited police response, there's decreased false alarms, and then the end user in the end is happy with the level of service they've received from the monitoring center. They're happy with the type of installation that they've received from the integrator, and they really feel like they've got a security solution that meets their expectation. And then lastly, with video, when you put video on an alarm system, you have the ability to create some preventative outdoor detection solutions. And I'll go over a few of those here in a minute. As far as the apprehensions that many integrators experience or feel is, you know, the thought of installing video on a site when they've done security installations for years certainly makes a lot of installers, you know, somewhat tense or apprehensive. Number one, they may have tried a video verification service in the past, and after the install, they thought to themselves, man, I don't ever want to do that again because it was cumbersome, because it was difficult. The equipment may have been very expensive. And at the end of it all, they just think, I don't know if this is worth it. We know we have to change. The industry is requiring us to change. The customers are expecting us to change. And then, of course, the police departments are going to require it as well. The city municipalities, the ordinances will force us into that situation. So dealers have been apprehensive because they know they have decades of alarm panels in place. And so when some vendors have created video verification solutions, some of the manufacturers have told integrators, you've got to replace all this alarm equipment. You've got to replace all these cameras. Well, that cost of that equipment and that sale may not go through because a client's not going to spend a bunch of money. The technician's experience may be a reason for apprehension. The lack of camera compatibility, the requirement of a lot of IT knowledge and IT skill sets, the cost of equipment, the dependability of the service. You know, if an integrator is going to sell video verification, they want to know that that service is going to meet the expectation of that client. And then the challenge of the central station operator to be able to respond to that alarm with confidence. These things create some apprehension in dealers. And so we feel at CHeKT, we've overcome many of these challenges, if not all of them, to create a solution that allows a dealer to utilize existing equipment, utilizing existing cameras, and not have a lot of IT cost or equipment expenses and time on a job, and know that the site will work when the site goes into alarm. One thing that's real important to note here is that our industry is a $54 billion a year industry, and that's what's at risk. You know, the alarm monitoring industry, and that's what I'm referring to is alarm system monitoring. That's the $54 billion a year industry that if we don't change, it's going to go away either to a DIY type service, it's going to go away to Ring, it's going to go away to Nest, it's going to go away to Google. Some of these companies these large organizations are moving into our space to disrupt it. And so we feel like we have an obligation to do something about that, to protect that revenue. So over the past, I would say past 3 years, many integrators have resorted to installing camera systems. Well, the challenge with a camera system is that a camera system, number one, typically doesn't generate any increased RMR, and they don't prevent crime. You know, this slide really is just illustrating the fact that cameras record crime every day, but they don't stop any crime. There are plenty of stories of an integrator who installed a Berg system and installed a video system. When somebody broke into the convenience store, the Berg system did exactly what it was supposed to do. Of course, the camera system recorded everything that took place. The operator did exactly what he or she was supposed to do and dispatched the police within a couple of minutes. The police took an hour and a half to get there. The business owner arrives, within 30 minutes or so. The criminal's gone, and he's able to watch in high definition the crime, which really that only makes the business owner more upset and more frustrating. And so then the next day they're calling their security company to say, what can you guys do? And he's mad at everybody as the owner of this shop because he got broken into and his shop was vandalized. And nothing that was in place did anything really to prevent that. So the video systems by themselves don't prevent anything. So we have, as part of our service, when an integrator installs the CHeKT bridge, we can put eyes on every sensor on that alarm panel. So every zone in that alarm panel can have a camera assigned to it. And so utilizing the existing alarm system and utilizing the existing camera systems in many cases, when a zone goes into alarm, the operator has the ability to get information like this. So what you see on the screen here on the left side is a representation of the automation platform. An operator is receiving a Berg alarm from a zone on that alarm panel. And immediately as the operator begins to process the alarm, they have access to the video of that alarm on the right side. If you look at that video, what you see is a couple of cameras, a couple of images, I should say. On the right side is the alarm video, and on the left side is live video of that camera. When an alarm occurs, our system, what it does is it uploads a video clip of the pre and the post alarm video of that zone going into alarm, and then it provides the operator with live video as well. And all of that happens within just a couple of seconds. Because the alarm panel is still doing what it's doing, the alarm panel is the device that's still delivering the Berg signal. Our bridge is what's delivering the video to the operator. An operator will never wait 30 seconds for the video to be available. It's available immediately and instantly, utilizing the existing systems. So to that point, we know that our industry has 3 core pillars that protect the security integrator and protect the monitoring center from a lawsuit. And that's proper detection, that's signal delivery, and that's signal response. And so at CHeKT, we believe that a video verification system should not interfere with those 3 core principles. Alarm systems have to properly detect an alarm when it occurs on a site. The alarm systems have to properly deliver, and then the operators have to be able to properly respond. If any one of those three pillars is interrupted, of course, a company can find itself in a courtroom. So what we don't do on every system is we ensure we don't affect the integrity of the alarm system. So what you see here is an illustration of how our system works, regardless of the environmental conditions and regardless of the weather. What you'll see here is a camera that's actually operating in rain. Now on the left side, you can see a picture of the camera with a motion detector right underneath it. That's actually a picture of the detector and the camera that you see playing. What you also notice is that there's a man in a reflective vest walking in front of that motion detector. At no point during the night did we get a false alarm on that motion detector because of weather. The motion detector only went into alarm when somebody walked in front of it. That's the power of a service like this, is you're not depending on video analytics. In the video analytics world, that camera probably would have created alarms all night long and would have had to have been shut off by the monitoring center due to the high number of false alarms. So video verification with CHeKT does not interfere with the ability to properly detect a person on site regardless of the weather. The second thing is that the speed of delivery. When video is a part of the alarm system, that video has to be available to the operator when the operator is processing the alarm signal. If the operator has to wait 20, 30 seconds, 60 seconds for video to be available, every second they're waiting creates additional apprehension in their mind. We know that time is of the essence when an alarm comes in, whether that's a panic or duress alarm, a burg alarm, or any type of an alarm. That operator has a responsibility to, as quickly as possible, determine the threat level, determine if it's an actual alarm, and respond accordingly. With the CHeKT video verification solution, that video is available to the monitoring center in as much time as it takes the alarm signal to be delivered from the alarm panel to the alarm signal, to the alarm center. So we don't interfere with that as well, and we actually complement the alarm signal to the monitoring center very well. And then the last piece is operator response. And this is where our intuitive web interface really allows an operator to have great visual verification during an alarm. An operator's process does not change at all when our solution is in place. The monitoring center continues to respond to alarms the way they always have. But when a site has been flagged as a CHeKT video verification site, and that operator begins to process an alarm, they immediately have access to a screen that looks similar to this. They get live video of a camera, and they get the alarm video. They get the pre-alarm and post-alarm video of that zone that went into alarm. So now the operator is responding with a high level of information and can accurately respond to that information or provide information to a client or police response team if necessary. So situation like this is an example of our service at a store. Now this site went into alarm because that front door was not properly assigned as an entry zone. It was an instant zone, and so when the employee came in, they set the burg off. Now, an operator could clearly see that this person does not have criminal intent. That doesn't mean the operator doesn't have to provide this information to someone. An operator can still push this to the client or push this to anybody that is responsible for the site, but it gives them a lot of information during an alarm to say it's likely that this isn't a criminal when a lady's walking in at about 9:55 in the morning and walking right to a keypad to try to disarm it, and she's got a purse on her shoulder. So this type of information, when a door opens and the system hadn't been properly programmed by a technician, or if this was a motion detector or door contact and that lady walked in and forgot to turn the keypad off. We say that many times on false alarms where an employee just walks right past the keypad. An operator can clearly see that instantly and provide information to a key holder, to a manager, to someone that's responsible for that site, and avoid a dispatch in many cases. So I'm going to go into the alarm panel wiring of our unit. This is the CHeKT bridge. The CHeKT bridge just is powered by 12 volts of power. You can see here on the unit, the left two pins are just a ground terminal and a voltage terminal. The unit can be powered from an alarm panel. It consumes about 400 milliamps of power when it's in alarm. So an installer certainly needs to consider his budget and potentially use an additional power supply or 12-volt transformer. But in many applications, that unit can just be powered off of the alarm panel itself. The second two pins are what we call our arming pins. Using the programmable output from an alarm panel, you simply wire into those two pins, and the bridge itself will follow the arm and disarm state of an alarm panel. So when the alarm panel is disarmed, the bridge itself is disarmed. When the alarm panel is armed, the bridge is armed. That becomes very powerful because it allows the visual verification solution to follow the behavior of the alarm panel, which follows the behavior of the people on site. So if an employee is going to come in on Sunday morning to do inventory, and it's not a scheduled day for someone to be there, the video verification solution will still follow the arm state of the alarm panel. So when they come in and they disarm the alarm panel, the visual verification solution goes quiet. When they leave at 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Sunday and they arm the alarm panel, the visual verification solution is re-enabled. So that's a very powerful, important piece to installing the bridge. The second connector is the Ethernet. The Ethernet port just simply allows the bridge to connect to the internet for uploading video. It's a DHCP device, so when it's plugged into a local area network, it'll pull an IP address off of that network and immediately begin communicating with our cloud. It does not require any port forwarding or firewall configuration for it to work. So the integrator can simply plug it in. If they plug in their laptop into a port at that premise and can get internet service, then this bridge will be able to get internet service just like a laptop would. And so that saves a lot of time on installation for technicians. The other thing that does is in the future, if the consumer was going to change their router or the consumer was going to get a new internet service provider, once that new router is in place or the new internet service provider is in place, this unit will come back online and begin to communicate. The technician would never have to go back out here to report forward or reconnect this to the network. And then the third section, as far as inputs of the bridge, is just the zone inputs. The bridge will support 4 zones and 4 cameras. A site can have multiple bridges, so if an integrator needs to supervise more than 4 zones or provide access to more than 4 cameras, you would just simply add 2 bridges or 3 bridges to a site. There isn't a limit to the number of bridges that can be placed on a site. So a single unit supports 4 zones and 4 cameras. What you'll just see is an input and a ground and an output for each of the zones. The cameras directly correlate to each zone. So when you get into the web interface and start configuring and assigning cameras, camera 1 will be associated to zone 1. Camera 2 would be associated to zone 2, 3 to zone 3, 4 to zone 4. The zones move from left to right. So as you're looking at this, zone 1 is to the far left, and then you count to the right for zone 2, 3, and 4. So if you just wanted to see an image or a picture of the bridge installed in an alarm panel cam, this just gives you a kind of a scope of the size that the bridge, space that it takes up within an alarm panel cam. In this illustration, the bridge itself is powered by the alarm panel, and the zones are wired in. A couple of the wiring diagrams that we have available. This is just to show technicians how the bridge can be wired. This information is also available on our support site. If they just go to www.CHeKT.com, that's CHeKT.com. These documents are also available online. couple of other wiring alternatives. The importance of this slide here, guys, is really to just re-illustrate how the bridge communicates and how the alarm panel will continue to communicate. If you look at this, the alarm panel is still going to communicate and transmit alarm signals over the existing communication system. So whether that's telephone lines, or AES radio network, cellular communicator, however it's communicating, you can see up here the transmission and programming will continue to operate the way it always has. That alarm zone will also continue to function the way it always has. This alarm zone here just represents a door contact or a glass break. The bridge unit is simply just supervising the voltage on that zone. So you can see here I got a red and a black. This is illustrating the bridge being powered off of the alarm panel. And then I have a red wire coming off of the programmable output, representing the arming and disarming capability for the alarm panel to change the state of the bridge. So when this alarm panel is armed, the bridge is in an armed state. If this door or zone goes into alarm, the bridge will create an alarm video on that corresponding zone and upload that video to the network, making it available to an operator. So that just is simply illustrating the integration and the transmission. And this is real key because this is really what illustrates why the bridge can work and can be compatible with any alarm panel. And truthfully, if you look at this, you would also understand that the bridge could work with any relay system. These inputs on the bridge are just dry contacts. So if you had a relay off of a piece of machinery or an access control system or a gate, you could use that to trip an input of the bridge and make video available to a monitoring center with any relay or clap. So I just want to go through a couple of scenarios that maybe visually illustrate how this service works. So in this diagram here, I have a camera, I have a network switch, I have an alarm panel, I have a bridge that would be integrated with that alarm panel. And then this is just representing a set of photo beams that could be in a warehouse, they could be outside, it could be a door contact. I think we all understand that just is a zone on the alarm panel. So, and here's a little person, and we'll make his name Bob. So as Bob walks through the beam, he sets that zone off on the alarm panel, which in an armed state create an event on both our bridge and the alarm panel. So simultaneously, both systems will begin transmitting to the monitoring center. The alarm panel, of course, transmits to the monitoring center the way it always has, and the bridge begins to transmit video to the CHeKT portal, making it available to the operator. And what you see here is the bridge creating that pre and post alarm video. So this is representing the video that it will store and send to the monitoring center of pre-alarm and then post-alarm. And at the point that that video hits the monitoring center, the operator now has access to the same alarm signal that they always have here, represented on the left, and then they have access to the video represented on the right. This graph just represents the signal flow in a little bit different way, but essentially the same thing that we just saw. An alarm sensor, transmission, same as it always has. We don't interfere or change that. Camera delivery is through the internet, and when an alarm goes off, this is the type of interface that an operator has. Then they can share or send this alarm clip to an end user who can dispatch or disregard based upon the information that they receive, or that information can be shared and pushed to the police department. All of this, of course, rapidly improves the response time for emergency response people. So just a couple of illustrations of how the solution has been used in the past. This is an interior motion detector with a camera assigned to it. So when this motion goes into alarm, this is what the operator would see. You see a person here in the field of view, and he set that motion off. The operator has that pre and post alarm video clip, and then the operator has access to live video. Some other illustrations of how the unit can be used is on residential property, where you might have high-end residential and you might need to use some sort of outdoor curtain or beam detection. This is just a real simple, inexpensive product that creates a 16-foot beam that you can use to cover pool areas, porches, backyards, that when the alarm panel is armed, this would trip and create video for the operator. In these types of scenarios, you might consider making those zones silent on the alarm panel, but still transmitting the same Berg signal to the monitoring center and giving the operator access to video during an alarm. Here's another scenario, and we've seen this picture a couple of times, of just a camera overlooking a photo beam. Overlooking a motion detector in a parking lot. It's really important to understand that what we do just continues to utilize the existing detectors that integrators have grown to trust. We don't force integrators to change alarm panels, detection devices, or cameras. We allow integrators to use the existing equipment that they trust and they've been trained on, and they understand how that equipment is installed and programmed. Our bridge just simply allows those two systems, the alarm panel and the video system, to now work in conjunction during an alarm. It's also important to note that the operator is not limited to just the camera that went into alarm, but if an alarm occurs and the operator is looking at that, they also have the ability to view all of the cameras that are in the bridge. So if there's one bridge on site and there's 4 cameras in that bridge, then the operator could view the other cameras on site. There was 8 cameras and 2 bridges. They would have access to the live view of all of the cameras on site. This is an illustration of just a camera overlooking a photo beam that's shooting across a parking lot. Again, this is a photo beam that will be reliable and will last for decades. There's no reason to change it. But if an operator needs access to see what caused that photo beam to go into alarm, setting up a bridge and allowing a camera to overlook it is the perfect way to create video verification. This is an example of our monitoring interface that the operator has access to during an alarm. The operators will always have access to a site map similar to this one here, where they can click on these individual cameras and go to that field of view of that camera. This site map is set up by the integrator or the installer on the day of installation, and then these cameras are placed on here as well. One thing you'll notice is that the red circle around these cameras would represent to the operator the number of times that camera has gone into alarm in the last 10 minutes. So if the operator had received an alarm for this site and all of the cameras on the south side of the property are red, the operator would be able to tell the police department where on that property an intruder might be. This is just another illustration of a camera overlooking an exterior motion detector on a property that's overlooking an entry gate, and then the operator having access to additional cameras. This is a representation of our dealer portal. A great feature of the CHeKT visual verification solution is that CHeKT's constantly supervising the connectivity of every device that an integrator installs with CHeKT. So if a bridge is online, an integrator will always see the status of that unit. If it goes offline, not only will the integrator see that it's offline, but they'll also be able to see how long that camera has been offline to determine if they need to provide service to that customer, or maybe call the customer and let them know that their internet service provider may currently be down. So this is just a graphical overview of a dashboard that represents information that an integrator would have available to them as they start installing the CHeKT service. At this point, I'm going to open up a live dealer portal for me to demonstrate some of the actions that you can, some of the features that you will use as an integrator. I'm just going to show you, this is a customer list. So these are a list of customers on an example integrator. This integrator has over 100 sites now installed with the CHeKT bridge. I'm going to pull up a site that is used for demonstration and training and just go through a couple of illustrations. Number one, creating a site here is super simple. You're just going to hit this plus sign, and like any portal interface, you're just going to type in an address and a name and create. Once a site's created, we'll automatically drop a pin on that location in Google Maps and provide that visual information here. You'll have the general client information listed here. It's important to note that on the right side here, your contacts, these are the emergency contacts that will receive a text message notification during an alarm. So when the monitoring center gets an alarm and needs to push a verification to the end user, these are the emergency contacts that would receive that text message during an alarm. So I'm just going to create a contact right now, just as an example. And when a contact is created, it's important to click this emergency contact. This is actually what determines if that person needs to receive the text message or not. If this checkbox is not selected, the person's information will be available to the operator, but they will not receive the text message that I'll illustrate here in a few moments. So I'm going to hit create. Down here, this is just the monitoring center information. The monitoring center that you're using will already be predefined for you as an integrator. You'll just simply set the account number for this site, and that account number will in many cases be the same as your alarm panel account number, but it's important to refer to your monitoring center to confirm that that's the account number that they wish you to use. If I go to the device tab here, I'll see a list of all my devices. As I mentioned earlier, we supervise the network connectivity of every device. So some things I really need to note for everyone is that you'll see that this is a bridge, and you'll see that that bridge is supporting currently 4 cameras. Some details here that you'll see is you'll see the bridge alarm input here is 1, and the alarm panel zone number is 17. You'll see this alarm input 2, and the alarm panel zone 18. This is alarm bridge input 3, alarm panel zone 41, bridge input 4, and alarm panel zone 42. What this represents is the bridge alarm input is that first digital input on our unit, and that 17 is representing what sensor is wired into that unit. This is very important when programming the bridge. That zone 17 information is what allows the operator to be driven directly to this camera when an alarm occurs on zone 17. So if I hit settings and I look at the field of view of this camera, when zone 17 goes into alarm, this is the camera that the operator is going to be driven to. So if I go to the alarm information, that zone 17 listed here is critical, and that needs to always match the alarm panel zone for the sensor. If I go to the zone type of any one of these cameras, I'm able to define an entry zone, a follower zone, an instant zone, or a 24-hour zone. I do want to point out here that if you have a panic or a duress button connected to the bridge, it's very important to make that a 24-hour zone. You want video to be available to the operator in this state, even if the panel is disarmed. That panic button in a convenience store, of course, is a 24-hour zone in the alarm panel, and so it needs to be set as a 24-hour zone in our bridge here. The entry zones and the follower zones behave exactly like an alarm panel, and the timers for that information is on the bridge under settings, under alarm, and I can set the entry timer and the exit timer for those zone types. As I scroll through the devices on this site, I'll see that everything is online. If a bridge or a camera goes offline, we'll provide a signal supervision to the monitoring center, very similar to a wireless transmitter missing on an alarm panel or a low battery on an alarm panel. We provide that level of supervision to the monitoring center and to you as the integrator so that you know when a camera goes offline. You'll see here that on this particular bridge, I have 2 IP cameras assigned to the bridge, and I actually have 2 DVR channels assigned to this bridge. Our bridge can support any device that's OnViv compliant. So that would be an IP camera or the HD over coax recorders directly. When it's an HD over coax recorder, you'll actually authenticate direct to the recorder, and then you'll pull a channel number. So you'll see here that this camera is channel 20 on this recorder here at this IP address. So you can see the last octet being 210. If I close this camera and I go to this camera, you'll see it's the same IP address, which means it's the same recorder, but this device is channel 19. So I'm pulling the stream off of channel 19, which again is a really cool feature of the bridge, because now you can utilize those high definition over coax recorders, or you can use IP cameras, whatever you prefer as an integrator. This site map here is the site map I referred to a few moments ago. This is the site map that you would upload. You'd simply press this arrow. You could upload a blueprint. You could upload a screenshot from Google Earth, and then you would place your cameras on this map. To place a camera on the map, you highlight it and hit Show Device. It'll appear on this map, and then you would simply drag it to the location that you would prefer and change the field of view. Once you have done that, you save those changes to lock it in, and now that map will be available to an operator during an alarm, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. The Alarm Library tab will simply show you the alarm signals that this site or bridge will transmit to the monitoring center during any one of these conditions. A majority of these conditions are supervisory or trouble conditions that are transmitted to allow the monitoring center to properly respond to those events that may occur on that site. What you'll see here, these 4 zones that are listed, you'll see that they're not enabled right now. And the reason that is because in the majority of the installations that you perform, the bridge will not send the alarm signal when the digital input trips. Your alarm panel will transmit that information. However, if you wanted the bridge to act as a redundant or backup communicator, you could force the bridge to also transmit an alarm code during an alarm, and you can choose the code you wish to transmit. This is powerful as a backup or redundant communicator, but this is also powerful in applications where the bridge may be being used in a scenario where the alarm panel is not in play. So you have some flexibility here, and we can go into greater detail later if there's additional questions. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the device list, and I'm going to open the monitoring portal. This is something that all integrators have access to for their sites, and the monitoring center has access to as well. They can open the monitoring portal on demand. Now, this monitoring portal is what the operator sees during an alarm event. Now, I selected Zone 6 just to illustrate what an operator would see if Zone 6 ever went into alarm. You can see that zone number here. You can also see the zone description here. It's the front entry motion. And you can see someone walking in behind the counter here, triggering the motion detector. If an operator were to receive this alarm and did not know if this person had authorization to be there, they would simply hit Verify Alarm and hit Verify Event, and an SMS text message would immediately be sent to all the key holders or assigned contacts for that site that we looked at a moment ago. Now, I set myself up and a couple of other individuals to receive those text messages. One of the things that you'll notice is that the operator can immediately see visually on their screen who has checked the text message. In addition to that, it's also audited and recorded on that customer's record account history within the automation platform. So at this point now, not only does the operator see that timestamp of who is checking, but that's now recorded in the alarm history on the account. So if neither one of these users respond to the alarm, we still have a record of them checking. However, if the user does respond and in this case, John requested a dispatch, the operator has visual information of that dispatch, and the automation platform also has an alarm record of that dispatch. The operator then can immediately click off of a camera and begin to move through the property, providing the police department with additional information. If an operator wanted to look at the property on a larger map, they could simply click on a map and then over each camera, just highlight and get live video of that location and that field of view of that camera. When an operator wants to minimize that site map, they would simply press this button and go back to the traditional view. One important note that when a verification is sent to the end users, it does not require the end user to have any special mobile app loaded. This is just going to be an SMS text message with a link that on their phone, they just click that link. I have additional examples and illustration of how that functionality works for the end user on our website. If you go to www.CHeKT.com, CHeKT.com, and go to our YouTube channel. There's a number of videos, and one of them is a video of what that text message verification looks like for the end user. It does not require an app. It's really simple for the end user just to verify, to review, and to determine if they want dispatch or to cancel on an alarm. Another important thing to note is that the end user does not have to change the native operation of their alarm panel or their video system. If they're using an alarm.com or other mobile app to arm and disarm their panel, they'll continue to use that. If they're using an app, a Honeywell app, or an app to access their video platform, their recorders, they can continue to use that app to access video on their recorders. We just consistently complement both of those devices. It's really important that we don't interfere with either one of those devices for you as the integrator or for the client. We just now allow that operator to have access to video during an alarm. Something else that we do for you as the integrator is every camera or DVR that is assigned to our bridge, we constantly sync the time. So in many cases, we all know that time, whether it's daylight savings time, time changes through the year, or the time just starts slipping on a device, we will constantly sync the time on that local recorder and IP camera so that the time is synced with real time from our internet service. So that's just an added feature that we perform for you as an integrator. Some additional information that I wanted to add here is when you're setting up a zone and you're setting up your cameras, it's critically important to understand that a camera should always overlook the full detection area of the zone. So for example, this camera is overlooking a photo beam. It's very important that the camera can see the whole beam area. If a camera is missing any portion of that beam detection area or a motion detection area, then an operator will likely miss an alarm if an alarm occurs. And it's possible that the operator would receive an alarm and not see anybody in the field of view of the camera. And that can create additional confusion for the monitoring center. So as the integrator, it is important for you to understand camera placement now when you're creating video verification solutions. On our portal, if you go to the alarm section, we give you the ability as the installer, the option to create what's called an alarm detection overlay. That's what allows you to say to the operator that this is a detection area. You can create a line that would represent a beam. You could create a fan shape that may represent motion detection area, or you could create just a polygon shape, which you can use to create any form of shape and create an area of interest, or provide information to the operator and type in some information here in the description box. But this alarm detection overlay really allows the operator to know where the detection area is. But I appreciate your time as we reviewed the features and the benefits of CHeKT and how CHeKT can help you create visual verification solutions for your clients. Please continue to review content and information on our website. www.chek.com. And thank you again for your time.